Okay, hello. You're called ARKIVET. I don't know how to pronounce it. Sorry? ARKIVET. I'm doing my best. But yeah, as you're not so familiar for Estonian people, then maybe you can a little bit open up what it is, who it is, and what's the purpose of it.
I think you should start.
I can start, and I had this idea some years ago to start this artist group, and I invited other artists to join in, and we had a discussion about the name. And it's not so easy to decide upon a name, but ARKIVET is like the archive, and meaning the collections, the stories, the history that we bring with us, and then we put it into new pieces of work. So we work like a group, we have discussions, and we decide upon common themes that we do year after year, and then we have the exhibitions with that theme.
Mm-hmm. And right now you're having 4 people. But have you had all the time 4 people, or has the grouping somehow evolved?
There has been actually from the beginning 5 people, but we had also had other artists working in different fields as guest artists, like in authors, video artists, and performing artists, photographers. So it's sort of an organic way of thinking as a group.
So from 5 to 4, we've been a group since 2014. So of course, not always the same, but the 4 that are now have been working since the start.
But why those 4, and how it became together that exactly those people have been coming together? And who are those 4 people? Because at the moment we see only 2, but maybe you can open it up a bit. Why those 4 people?
No, the thing is that as a jewelry artist, it's really difficult to get solo exhibitions, because the galleries think that we are working into smaller scale to fill a gallery space. And I was thinking that perhaps we should start an artist group and see how that can sort of evolve. And then I invited several people to join the artist group, and in the beginning we were 5 people, and now just 4, but we have, during the years that we have exhibited together, that we have been, it depending on which artists we invite and what kind of project we're doing. It's sort of an organic project. So now we are Putte H and Hilde Dramstad, Ella Heidi Sand, and me. But next year it might be more or fewer, and we invite other artists in. So it's.
But that's more as a guest into the project. We are the group itself is very stable, of us 4 now, and you invited colleagues that you knew. Yeah. Hilde, you studied with.
Yeah.
And then you invited Ella. I don't know how I was invited, but I was.
By chance, no.
By chance, I was lucky, I think. Going like, ooh,
no,
who do we
but
invite?
we were looking at artists that would be a good fit for the group, and then we do different types of projects every year, every exhibition year that we do.
But is there anything more that connects you beside the medium? Because somehow similar-minded people find each other. So what was the ground floor where you met each other? Is there any poetic similarities? Were there some philosophical similarities, or some, views on life that connected you also? Or was it mainly just jewelry, and you felt that, okay, with those for people, we could stay together maybe longer than one exhibition?
Well, I think that you notice during the first project if it's working or not, because otherwise it will be too much friction. And the whole project is based on finding new themes, sort of common ground that we can agree upon, and then working from that. And then we are like a machine when we are into the gallery. We're just, we are planning, exhibiting, and then it all comes together. And I think that's the collaboration is super important, that you have common thought, that you have, even though you're different types of artists, that you can work together and agree upon common exhibition form, a theme, and work on that and grow from that and get inspired from each other. So I think that's the common ground.
But I think also that the one common ground, we all gone to the same academy in Oslo at different times, but we have similar background in education. And then the other part is that maybe it's not so much common ground. And that's the strength of the group, is that we actually think very differently, we work very differently, and that makes a great diversity in the jewelry, which I think is the strength of the group. That when you come and see an exhibition of ARKIVET, you see one theme and you read ice cold, and then you come here and you will see, okay, but there's completely different interpretations of the theme, which we think it will give the audience
a different view, more ways or different perspectives, different ways to enter the subject and make it more interesting. If we were too similar or too similar in the way we thought or the way we work with the jewelry, it would be less interesting. So that we have different methods of working and usually associate completely different things with the themes, that we agree upon, like ice cold. I think makes it interesting, and also for us, because I'm always excited, like what the other ones do. I think it's obvious interpretation of the theme, what I do, or not obvious, but your point of view.
Yeah, my point of view. And then the other ones have thought of something completely different than I thought of. Makes it exciting to work together.
Yeah, I have heard from the Art Academy, from people who has worked as a group, that alone you're always faster, but in a group you always move further, or like the distance is further.
That's a good analogy. Yeah.
Also because of the method, how we work with choosing these themes. We work with one theme for a while, a year, 2 years, depending on the exhibitions and how it works. But when we choose a theme, it is agreed in the group, but it doesn't mean that it's necessarily, what is closest to your heart or
easy,
main interest at the time, or easy. And it is always a lot of compromise in the group. So sometimes you go like, oh, do I have to work with secrets for 2 years, or ice cold? I have no ideas with ice cold. That happens in the group.
It challenges.
Yes, it gives us all a challenge to really, because then you have to produce something. You have to create and come up and find a way into that theme to create art. And I at least love that process, that it's a lot of resistance in it. I can be very angry. You go like, oh, I didn't want to work with this. But then finally, you sort of crack that nut and find something in there that is interesting to work with. And then you make work that you may never have done otherwise.
No, yeah, that's true.
That it's a challenge in that way. And of course also working in a collective or a group is a lot of it's collaboration, but it's also that you don't have to do everything yourself as an artist. As all artists know, there's a lot of work.
Different strengths and different skills.
And then we divide the responsibility. So, because usually as an artist, you have to do a lot of things that is not artwork, and a lot of things that you might not be so good at. And here we have figured out over all these years who is best at what. And then it's like, you do the photography. God, I don't have to do it. Great, you know. So it's more efficient, I think.
Yeah.
Or you can. It's better quality than in all the different small parts.
Yeah, and as you're from Norway, it's a good chance for me to little bit generalize something, or to get a peek into Norwegian jewelry life. So would you say that there is something specific for Norwegian mindset, or for how to say northern mindset, that makes it more unique? Or we are living in so global world, so multicultural world, that there is no possibility to make any difference in between, let's say, Latin American contemporary art jewelry, Middle European, Western European contemporary art jewelry, or there is still something specific? Because what I have seen is that quite often people who are from northern countries, they are emphasizing this coldness and darkness as two things, because now in Estonia we have a new art magazine. It's called A Shade Colder. I also visited in Sweden this exhibition From the Coolest Corner. Also you are emphasizing this coldness. Is this something that connects the whole northern region, or you still see something even more specific in Norwegian jewelry?
I would say that in this instance that we chose the theme Ice Cold is because we were thinking about what people are expecting of us. You know, as a Norwegian, we are going to do this exhibition in Baltimore in the USA also, and we were thinking about what people would expect us to do and how they perceive us as a Nordic people, and that it would be interesting and sort of an exploration into that theme. So usually Norway is connected to the cold, to the dark, to the ice, and you know, it's something that follows. We can't escape that. It's something that's very connected to our country. At the same time, we are also in the summer, like in Tallinn in the summer, we have very light nights. We have a lot of sun, it's warm. So it's a little bit play with the fiction of the Nordic countries as very cold and very icy. But it's not like that all the time. It can be super warm and super, you know, super... I don't know.
We have 4 very different seasons, as you have too.
Seasons,
so.
yeah.
But yes, it was a thought of what is the first thing you would associate Norway or the Nordic countries with. Ice cold is one of them. So we picked it, and maybe so we were thinking a little bit different than I wasn't aware that you think maybe it's a theme in general that people are concerned with in the Nordic countries. But for us, it was also a way to reflect, excuse me, reflect around that we do live for a long period of time in a very cold climate. And then through this exhibition, you can see that some has taken that winter and made work Well, ice cold can of course also be that you are ice cold to me, or someone makes an ice cold decision. Cruelty, cynical, to be cynical. I mean, ice cold has all those other dimensions as well.
So many aspects. And I think that in my case, I was thinking about the emotional and the physical part of coldness and ice. And while others were thinking, like in Hilde's work, Hilde Dramstad, she has been inspired by a walk she had the 1st of January after New Year's Eve, and she saw this confetti and the remains of a party, and she thought that was so inspiring after this pandemic, you know, to see that people had this party and been celebrating together. And so I think that our, you know, different perspectives is that makes the group work actually. Yeah.
Yeah, and we try with the titles or the themes always to have that they are open enough, you know, so you can go into different directions of it. But maybe back to what you talked about was maybe we want to be associated with, or that's our differentness of, you know, how to be different from Middle Europe, for example. Yes, it's colder in the north, it's longer winters, it's darker.
Yeah, we
so maybe we
we're embracing that and thinking that, okay,
especially when we show abroad, it's not so interesting within, you know, in Norway.
Yeah, I heard one Icelandic designer saying that if you live in Iceland, then in the winter period, you don't need much to be a little bit melancholic, a little bit sad. And in the summertime, you don't need much to be happy because...
because it's an extreme difference. So, so yes, I think most Norwegians will recognize that feeling that it's very easy to get down, melancholic or slightly depressed in the winter because it's so dark. And then in the summer, there's, you know, if it's sunshine, you're happy.
Euphoria. No, but I would say that in Norway we have that. In Norway we say mørketid, which means actually dark times. But in English it would be polar nights, which sounds a little bit different. But for us, it's, you know, we have a little bit of daylight and a lot of night, and of course it affects us. And the work we do, I guess, as an artist, is really difficult to start working on summer works in the darkness of the winter when you only have some hours of daylight. And I think that's important to acknowledge that and think that, okay, this is a part of the way that we live, the way that we experience light and coldness and winter and summer, that we are very seasonal. So summer is like this big celebration from one end to the other, with the summer holiday and drinking and staying up all night. And then in the winter we stay at home and we are super, you know, cozy, and we have candles and everything. So I think that's
we go into hibernation in some way. Not actually sleeping, but up in the couch with a blanket and then watching too many.
And this is something that has sort of an impact on what we eat, for example, how we preserve food. And I guess that in Tallinn, Estland, you have the same thing, that you have a lot of way to preserve food during the winter so you can survive. And in Norway also we have the same system. It's, sort of bury it in the ground, smoke it, dry it, all of these kinds of pickling and,
But it does influence also your working rhythm, because I personally like to overcrowd myself with work in the winter time. And then in the summertime, I really try to avoid working.
Yeah, so in summer, we just want to have a good time, and in the winter, we just work. It's true.
Totally recognize that. It's not always that it, happens. No. Sometimes the deadline is in September. But definitely much easier to work hard and long hours in the winter because there's nothing else to do anyway.
Yeah.
And you don't want to go outside, so you might as well stay in the studio and work.
Outside it's freezing.
Yeah, and I would actually like to also ask, how do you actually work, or how do you gain your ideas? Because like one moment you don't have any ideas, and on another moment you're having an exhibition. So what happens in between, or how those ideas found you, or you found those ideas? You mentioned walking early in January on white snow and finding those confetti. Do you all have those magic moments that you try to recognize, or what is your working method? Or it just more press on hard work and sweat as long as you start sweating blood and then this creation comes? What is your own working rhythm?
Shall I start?
You can start.
Because I think we all have different ways to get into or to find inspiration in how we work. With my pieces here that is inspired by the global seed Vault, sorry. A global seed vault in Svalbard, which is where the whole world sends in seeds to preserve for the future. I have no idea. I don't remember. Probably read an article. I mean, I known about the sea vault for a long time, but why they came into the work now? Probably read something about it again, or and then it's the vault is in the in Svalbard because it's in the ice, so it will always stay cold even if the generators don't work or the electricity shuts out. It will stay cold, which preserves the seeds. But I often have that the ideas comes from reading news, something. That's like the solution to the idea. But then I work with ready-made, so I work with things I find and then change them. And that comes from partly having an enormous collection of items in my studio, as well as searching for things and finding things and going like, this is really cool. Maybe I could use that for, what I've decided to make.
What you're saying, that you have a vocabulary of pieces in your studio that you can, draw upon when you need something.
Yeah, and I often, like with this, I decided I wanted glass, cold, and also the transparent. Then I had to go out and find them in flea markets and secondhand stores, and then work with them. But well, at least three of us, no, all of us actually use things that we find as part of the vocabulary, at least.
Yeah, it's interesting to think that the seed bank is better protected than the banks in Switzerland, because it's so precious, and it's also, it makes you think about the hierarchy of the materials, because seeds doesn't seem so valuable. You can buy them with quite a low price from a regular bookstore. You can collect them yourself. But in the same time, on these moments of crisis, they are more valuable than gemstones. So it's interesting to think that instead of gemstones, you're using seeds in your jewelry. Is it important part for you?
No, but I think that we all have different sort of beginnings when we work, and I don't know about Hilde and Heidi, but for myself, I always draw upon my own life and my own history, my own experience, and I'm like this person who always sees everything and sort of absorb everything around me, and for me it's very difficult to not be conscious about the environment and what's in my all around me all the time. So I try to compartmentalize and sort of understand why I feel this way, why I work this way, why to understand the background, to understand the feelings, to understand the connections. And so I try to be very mindful of the different sort of inspirations that I use in my work, and I think that's really important. It's sort of like this dialogue with myself, the communication with myself when I do something and I wonder, why am I doing this? Where does this come from? And I have to analyze and go back into history and then see, okay, so this is because my mother this, that, or my father said that, or because I was looking at this when I was a child, or because I'm interested in, okay, I always analyze, and that's something that I always sort of, because I work as a teacher myself at the Norwegian, the Oslo Academy of Arts, I think it's super important to be conscious where your inspiration comes from. Why are you doing this? Why is it that you like blue better than yellow? Why is it that you like these squares before the circles? That you have a conscious opinion, that you have this mindfulness and understanding, so that you can use it as an instrument.
Yeah, there's two types of fashion designers. Some of them start from a drawing, and some of them start straight sketching with fabrics. So how do you see your process yourself? Do you make sketches, or you rather feel yourself more comfortable when you start straight with three-dimensional objects? How your process looks like in the workshop?
I have to start with I never sketch. And the only thing I can sketch is technical solutions that I have to figure out how that will be fitted into the other parts, so I understand it. But I have to sketch with materials, using the material, trying it out. But I do, which is not a sketch, but I do write a lot of notes, have brainstorm, writing down notes, and then in the process working, I will write down every thought I have on the project or the theme, and then just to memorize all the thoughts that comes into the process, because I can use it later. And I quickly will forget if I thought something smart 2 months ago. So, yeah. So writing is a way of thinking, and for me it's sort of sketching, but material otherwise, hands-on.
In my case, it's dual. Sometimes I do a lot of sketching and drawing. Other times I just work on impulse or very intuitive. But my formal language, or sort of technical language right now, is enameling, and I can teach in it, and I can theorize and can say, you did this wrong because you had too many layers, or you didn't have enough, the metal wasn't thick enough, and this is why the enamel didn't work. But for my own work, I'm just, let's try, let's see what works.
But yeah, one thing that I also wanted to ask is about craft scene in general in Norway, because at least while being in Estonia, I have heard a lot. You have Norwegian crafts organization. Yeah. You also have a magazine, Handverk, I think was the name. Yeah, I wrote one article for them. So right now we can say that we have a kind of craft revival, or at least because fine art world is having this. I don't know how many new materialism waves they have had, but right now they're having again this kind of new materialism wave, and ceramics are super popular, textile has been really popular. Now glass is this upcoming medium that every contemporary artist, whatever sculptor or painter wants to use. Also in textile, tufting is like super popular, and sometimes I even feel that people who work mainly with contemporary craft or medium-wise, something that we have seen as applied art or contemporary craft, feels a little bit even, how to say, sad that they are not the special ones anymore, because even though it brings a lot of attention to jewelry and to ceramics and glass, then a lot of people also use it for really fast attention. So how do you feel about the, how to say, the health of craft in Norway? Or first of all, do you associate yourself more with contemporary craft or with fine art? How do you say? Do you make any difference between there?
I think that question is very difficult, because it's been as long as I've been working as an artist, that has been sort of a question: are you working with fine art? Are you working with arts and craft? And the thing is that working with jewelry art is the sort of the bottom of the hierarchy. If you count it as fine art, so usually people would assume that it has been very wearable and very precious to use it, and they don't understand that a piece of art jewelry can be, in my opinion, contemporary art jewelry is the best art in public spaces, because you bring it out to the people. You are always in the public with art, and I think that's just an opinion that has been formed over years, and for us it's not so good, but it will always go like in sort of waves or circles and return. So you will have some years where ceramics will be very popular, or textiles will be on the high, and then suddenly everybody wants to work with jewelry. And now I see that a lot of fine artists are working with jewelry. So I think it's a little bit annoying, of course, but also it's good that we don't have to be very strict about it. I think that art is art, no matter what. And I don't want to be rigid about it myself, so I hope that others, if I want to do prints or paintings, then they won't judge me like I won't judge them if they suddenly started making jewelry. So yeah, I guess that's the roundabout answer.
Yeah, I associate myself as the arts and crafts. That's part of the union that I'm part of in Norway. But it's not really, making the art. It's art. Yeah. So it's that border or that difference is of no importance when you make the art or to work. But there's different places that shows the art. So there is still two different worlds that we know about. I live outside of I live in a smaller town, and there is a big artist community and with fine art and arts and crafts, and we're all friends and colleagues and work together or collaborate or just hang out. So I don't think so much about it there, because all the places to show art there shows both. There's no division between painters or jewelry artists in that community. But that's a smaller community. It's not, it's a small town.
But I think it should be open. If you want to do jewelry, do jewelry. If you want to do paintings, do painting. It shouldn't be like this very divided society.
No.
Of course, there will be skills involved, but you can learn, you can, evolve, you can bring in resources. It's not a big deal, actually, I think. So I don't appreciate people making a big deal of it, because I don't think it's a big deal. I have a small gallery, and I have exhibited fine artists with jewelry. So for me, it's a non-important division.
But they have to make good work.
Of course, everything has to be good work. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes when I mention that as an artist I make jewelry, then everybody, usually when they have not been familiar with art jewelry, then they think that I work with fashion, that I make fashion collections. But it's interesting to think that traditionally fashion artists are doing 2 collections per year, and jewelry artists usually make 1 collection in every 2 years. So that also makes it interesting to think why they are so separated, even though we could think that they are so similar, like fashion and jewelry. But why do you think they are so different? Why there are so different mindsets involved?
No, I think that's the main difference is that fashion artists make others do the jewelry, and we make our jewelry ourselves. I think that's mostly that. We don't make, we don't commission the work from others. We do it ourselves, and part of the pleasure, part of the piece of work is that it's made by ourselves. So immediately, if you start to commission and let others do the work for you, then I guess you border up on design. And fashion is mostly design, I guess. So I think that's the biggest difference. But I see a lot of good pieces in fashion jewelry, and I think it's very interesting. Like the Schiaparelli pieces lately, they are very inspiring. I like that, but I can see this is not something that is made by a jewelry artist, because it's commissioned. Perhaps it's made in China or somewhere else where they have the artisans, but not the artists. Yeah.
I think I always thought the difference between creating, if I understood you right, creating fashion compared to jewelry, or did you mean specifically fashion jewelry?
I meant more people who create fashion, because jewelry associated like an accessory for fashion, but they are not usually functioning in the same system, because fashion world is usually much faster than jewelry world. And also there comes the mindset that jewelry artists are putting much more philosophical effort into their concepts. And
that's what I was going to say, that we work with a completely different mindset. Yeah. But you have, of course, jewelers but then they work with fashion jewelry, or make production lines that they sell for stores, which is a different thought. Like if you have a commercial thought, you come up with an idea and you produce something to make money on it. Well, most of us work where the idea and the conceptual part of the jewelry is the main focus. And I think you have, of course, the wearer there, but it's not a specific group that you, or at least I never worked with, thinking I'm making this for men age 30. Oh. Well, I think fashion is much more, it's
directed
to
target
audience. You know who you're making the item for, or who you want to influence. While I make it for an audience that I hope are all age groups, or we do, that I want, to reach out to different kinds of people to reflect.
Or you think that it will reach a certain person because of its intentions and artistic value, and not because it's hip or it's cool or in the fashion right now, but it's like a piece of art. It's timeless. Yeah,
and it's not. even if we work with jewelry, it's the main purpose is not necessarily that the person that sees it absolutely wants to wear it. I hope that because many people would not wear it, either they absolutely want to have it in their house and look at it, or they just they get touched or have an experience and you know, a reflection around just looking at the art.
Yeah, it's like
that the experience is just as important, not the ownership.
Yeah, it's like Susan Cummins said, that the only part in jewelry that she don't like is wearing it, but everything else she loves.
Yeah, I love wearing art jewelry, so.
Yeah, and actually I have talked to several collectors who say that before they were collecting fine art, paintings, prints, maybe smaller sculptures, but it was only something for themselves. If they bought a great painting, they maybe hanged it to the living room wall and only they saw it, and maybe some friends who visited saw it. But they started to buy jewelry, and especially art jewelry, because that was an artwork that they were able to show. It became this kind of conversation piece, because if you wanted to speak about a painting, you had to bring this person to your home, but now you were able to go out and have all the communication you needed, you wanted, and yeah, that was their reason to wear jewelry. You already said that you don't wear jewelry, but my question was like,
no, I wear jewelry. I wear a lot of jewelry.
Okay. Then I misunderstood that you're not wearing art jewelry.
I think that the art jewelry is the perfect art in public spaces. So you bring the jewelry out and people are enjoying the art. So I'm the opposite. I wear a lot of jewelry all the time.
Okay, so but when you make an art piece, you make a piece of jewelry, do you already have some kind of expectation what is happening with your piece in the world? Like what will happen with it?
I always hope that there will be some sort of dialogue and some sort of interaction. And I think that's the thing that separates contemporary art jewelry from other types of art. It's that you bring it out in the world and you create some sort of connection with the people around you, and you'll always start a dialogue, you will always start questions. People will ask, what are you wearing? What is the history? How did this come by, and what's that? So it's always a conversation starter and always interesting to meet people with that interaction.
I think one of the coolest things with wearing jewelry is the conversation, but especially that you have conversations with people that are not necessarily interested in art.
Yeah.
I often, because I have a lot of friends or, that are not interested in art, they don't go to galleries, but if I have a piece, they'll be like, what is that? Did you make it? And, what is it about? Does it have a title? Then you have the whole conversation. But I work in an art gallery as well. They don't come there to see exhibitions. I mean, I have friends that come there too. But so suddenly you can have the conversations, because it's public art, with people that don't think that they are interested in art, but of course they're curious.
Yeah.
We're all curious, so if you see something that you haven't seen before, then you will ask the questions and you have a conversation. And then they get introduced to contemporary jewelry.
Yeah.
Without knowing.
Yeah.
Do you have this question that you expect people to ask when they see your piece? Or what could be the question that someone could ask when they meet your piece first time in their life?
My favorite question would or is, what is that about? Or, wow, when I saw that, I just started to think about, and they tell me what they saw when they see the piece. That's the best part.
Yeah, I think that to be open-minded and not judgmental, that's the most important because, well, at least in Norway, we have very few collectors, we have very few people understanding contemporary jewelry. So not to be like this, oh, you don't understand what this is, so arrogant, or, you know, looking down at people who doesn't understand, but be always open and friendly and accepting different kinds of questions, but be just friendly about it, because then that's the way to sort of reach people and start a conversation, start a dialogue, and have a nice and interesting discussion, and perhaps you will make a new customer, or get a new gallery visitor or something. It's always important to be kind, I think, and understanding and non-judgmental in any way.
And art doesn't have one answer, so
no.
That's why it's fun to hear other people's thoughts of your own work, you know, because sometimes they think of, they interpret the work as something completely different than my intention. Not, you know, and it's not wrong. It's just interesting that they have a different association to what you make, or they just have a different private story. So that triggered something else in their head. I like those conversations.
Thank you. I think it's a good place to wrap things up. If you agree, then yes, thank you for coming, and I hope you still have a great one day in Tallinn. But your pieces will stay here much longer, and people will have conversation with you without you being present yourself.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah.
And we will enjoy our last day.